Sledgehammer Horror Guys. I'm Ashley Sledge,
And I'm Ken Sledge.
and let's defend horror.
So today we are joined by the amazing Garrett, Born2BeRad, member of the Rad Pack, been a guest on this channel a couple different times. How you doing tonight, brother?
Good, man. It's cool to be back hanging out with you guys. It's been a little while. It's been a crazy year, so it's kind of cool to be back to talk about this movie that I don't think gets enough love out there.
Yeah, we're very excited. We just finished watching it again about an hour ago. But before we talk about which movie you're defending, I do want to remind everybody, if this is your first time seeing Garrett on the channel, I have all of his social media links as well as the YouTube links down in the description. So make sure you're checking him out. Before we get started, Garrett, can you tell people a little bit about Born2BeRad and the Rad Pack for people that don't know you and haven't seen your stuff yet?
Yeah, man. So again, my name is Garrett from Born2BeRad, and basically I talk movies, I talk nostalgia, I talk collectibles. So mostly hang around the 80s and 90s because that's when I grew up, and that's like the kind of stuff that I just had loved back then and I still love now. So if you're into any of that kind of stuff, and of course horror, definitely pop on over because we always got new stuff cooking over there on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you don't have to go far to find it because it's all right down here in the description, guys. So make sure you're joining his family, becoming a part of that, because I think there's nothing more rad that you can do than do that. So very excited to have you here.
Yeah. So, Garrett, do you want to tell everybody what movie we're defending today?
All right, so we are going to defend 1988's Black Roses, which is a pretty cool 80s movie that has to do with horror and heavy metal. So definitely two things that are up my alley. So I'm really just excited to talk about this one because I do feel like it really doesn't get talked about much.
I had never heard of this movie until you told us this is what you wanted to defend.
Nope.
So we went and watched it. And to break the fourth wall, we were supposed to do this episode a while ago, but family and things happened, so we had to push it back a little bit. But I did not realize that our Uncle Lloyd over at Trauma had a part of producing this movie, so that made us pretty excited.
Yeah,
now
when I seen that come across the title, I was like, oh, really? Yeah. Trauma? Like, okay, that makes sense.
Now we always talk about Rotten Tomato scores, and yes, guys, we know with horror, Rotten Tomatoes is not the kindest, but it's always the most universal that we can do. And for the first time ever, we do not have a tomato meter on this movie, but the audience score is a 48%. So this is a movie that the tomato meter is just not there. It does not exist, so we can't compare anything off that. But the audience gives it a 48%. Now, we want to talk about some of the criticisms real quick that we read on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so some of the audience's criticisms were it's an 80s schlock. They crammed too much stuff into one film, some bad special effects, and some of the masks look like cheap department store masks. The music is bad, which I totally disagree with that. And there's bad camera work. Also
bullshit. Yeah. Now, we had to get that out of the way real quick. But Garrett, why does this movie mean so much to you? Why is this the movie that you were like, you know what? The Sledges asked me to defend a movie. This is the one I want to choose.
Yeah, and I think it really, like I said, has to do with one that I really enjoy and I've enjoyed for a long time, and nobody ever talks about it, number one. Number two, it doesn't have any kind of upgrade on physical media except for this damn DVD that came out in, I don't know, this came out in, I can't even find it, but like this is old, man. This is from Synapse, and it came out a long time ago, 2007, actually, this came out. So it's long overdue for an upgrade, and I've been kind of talking with some people that are in different studios about, is this going to ever get upgraded? It almost seems like it's going to be hard to upgrade this because of like, I don't know, I think like masters were lost, or I think something happened with a flood and like nobody knows where anything is. And so we may never see this again. And it was just one of those things that I just want to get more eyeballs on it because I think it's just one that I really loved growing up. And everything you said about the Rotten Tomatoes thing, like besides like you said, the camera work, I can't really say much about that as far as like, oh, it was terrible. I didn't really notice that. The music, I think, is fantastic in this movie.
Super catchy.
I think these songs are like, if these songs came out in the 80s, they would have been like huge hits, right? And I think when it comes to like the schlockiness and, some of the bad looking effects, like that's kind of, for me, if I read that, I'm like, oh, I definitely want to see this movie because like that's kind of the weird shit that I'm into, to be honest with you. Like, those wacky 80s movies with like the really weird special effects are the ones that I'm really drawn to because it just brings me back to like that was like the only time shit like that could happen, right? Like
Mhm.
they could get away with all that kind of stuff. You look at other movies like The Stuff, it's like, hey, we're gonna do this thing about like this killer yogurt with these like crazy special effects where the guy's face is stretched out. Like only the 80s can do stuff like that. Like you bring some of this stuff to the table now, and I don't think it's gonna ever, pass through to get through into production at
Right.
that point. So that's the kind of 80s that I love, is like the kind of wild out of the box stuff. And
Mhm.
a lot of people talk about Trick or Treat when it comes to heavy metal and horror back in the 80s and Sammy Kerr, but I mean, I want to sit here and talk about Damien, because I
Damien,
feel like,
baby.
to me, yeah, like he should be on the same level. Like this is a lot more like hair band, hair metal of the
Yeah.
stuff that I was into, and they had ballads and all this other stuff. And I think the music is really something that I think people need to watch this just to check out, because these songs are super catchy, man.
Mhm.
And I agree. Like, if you're into like Poison, Skid Row, that type of stuff, this music will be right up your alley.
Mhm.
Like watching this movie really took me back to, for me it was the early 90s when I
It's
was
like
listening to this
nostalgic
music,
for
and
sure.
they nailed a lot of what they were doing with this score.
I
And
I just love how like it's tuned down when like the parents are there, and then when the
Right.
parents leave, they like they pull everything off, and it's like total metal. Like that's awesome.
see, and one of the big things I love about it, like we're talking about the music and the practical effects, and I think I would rather take a schlocky looking mask than some CGI whiteout over the
100%.
face any day of the
Yeah.
week. The fact that they kept it all practical. I'm with you when I'm reading these negatives. I don't think these are negatives that Ashley and I had. These are negatives that we're reading and we're like, I don't understand why. A lot of these we were like, why is this a negative?
Yeah.
If you go into this looking for an Academy Award Best Picture, sure,
Sure.
these things might look bad, but if you're going into it looking for a fun 80s horror movie, you're gonna have a great time.
Mhm.
Like, that's one thing I can promise you. You are going to have a great time. And you were talking about the printing of this movie. It is available right now on Shutter, guys, but a
Mhm.
VHS rip copy of it is available on YouTube. And I have that down in the description. And the coolest part about this VHS rip that's on YouTube, it includes the trailers beforehand, just like it used to on your VHS. So
That is
you can
awesome.
even watch the trailers beforehand here on YouTube. So check the movie out if you haven't. Um, we talk about, why this movie means so much to you and why it's such an important movie to you.
Yeah. So, do you have any favorite moments from the film that you can think of?
Yeah. Again, being a lover of hair metal and being a lover of horror movies, when I saw this, it really just, resonated with me, because it just seemed like it was like that was kind of how things were back then. Like the parents, especially in a small town, like I think it was Mill Basin was the name of the town. In that small town there, you're bringing rock and roll or heavy metal to the small town, and the parents automatically are like assuming the worst. And that's how things
Mhm.
were, back then, I'm sure, with a lot of teenagers and stuff like that. And so I think it just really hits home when it comes to how things were back then, especially in small towns like that. But, not only with the heavy metal and horror and all that kind of mixed in, that was something I was into, but that opening scene to me was just so, it was so different. And again, I can understand a lot of people be like, it's stupid, but to me, it was wild. Like it starts out and you get these two freaking Lamborghinis, like coming down the street with these guys inside, and then they zoom by and it says Black Roses, but it says Black Roses in like a cartoon like
Yeah.
Mhm.
font, which is super weird. It's like all these weird cartoon vibes. It almost looks like something out of Creep Show. And then it says
Mhm.
Black Roses. Like it was just so odd of like a way that they would have titled it. And that always stuck with me when I'm like, okay, we've got heavy metal, we've got fancy cars, we've got, horror. And I just thought that all that combined is something that definitely really, really made me excited about this movie when I first saw that title screen. But one of the other ones was, like you said, that scene where they're doing the slow ballad in front of the parents. um, I'm trying to think. I actually have this. I have the soundtrack right here. Like, so
Nice.
That's
I
That's
got the
awesome.
legit.
soundtrack. So like the song was it was we're on our way to paradise. Yeah, that was the song they were doing with the parents. And then and that was a cool song, man. And the song is really good. And then all of a sudden, when the parents shut the door, like you said, it just kind of rips into like some heavy stuff. That
Mhm.
scene means a lot in the sense that it was just such a cool, like I loved the song, and I thought that was just a cool part of the movie. And I think the opening scene where you actually see the band at the beginning performing the song, and they were the demons. And like you
Mhm.
see like these puppets like singing the song and stuff. And it's just it was just so cool. Like it was just, again, it goes back and it's like, dude, this is only the 80s. Can they make this shit work? Where it looks like Jim Henson puppets of zombies singing like heavy metal songs and stuff. So really, really cool. And if you guys didn't know, like having the soundtrack here, a lot of these songs were actually performed by a band, Lizzie Borden, which I know people are
Oh,
familiar with from the 80s. Yeah, so they actually did a lot of those songs for the movie. So you can find those on like Spotify and stuff like that. Yeah.
that's legit.
Yeah, that's
I'm
awesome.
definitely checking those out tonight. Those are gonna make the playlist tonight.
Yeah, Me
Um,
Against the World by Lizzie Borden is the main is the opening track of the movie. Yeah.
and one thing I wanted to touch on real quick, because obviously with a movie like this, we're talking about how it's 80s hair metal, it's horror, there's monsters, but there's a lot of real shit in this movie. You know, as someone that's been that's worked with children before as a parapro, having a teacher that's sole mission is to make sure that his kids are taken care of. You know,
Yeah.
that's a big point of this movie. Like,
Mhm.
I want to teach these kids, what's this guy from the past going to teach me about writing? Not going to teach you anything about writing, but it's going to teach you to live the life the way that you want to live it, the way that you should live it, to be the best person that you can be.
Hmm.
His love of his students, I wish we still had that type of
Mhm.
real passion, that I could see that today with teachers. You know, it's not just a paycheck. It's not going to be as outrageous as possible, or, make TikToks and all that stuff. You're there to teach kids and love the kids like they were your own. And, when you see a
Mhm.
moment like that in this film, like the one chick's like belittling him, like, oh, you're just going to teach these little kids of yours. And he's like,
His ex
Mhm.
yeah, he's
girlfriend.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
teacher.
Your
Like,
your little
Right,
kid.
right.
yeah, like, I don't think that's a bad thing. So I did want to touch on that real quick, because obviously that's a real scenario. This
Mhm.
teacher that loves his kids so much and wants the best for his kids. How are you going to be judged? I guess I'm going to be judged on how good of a teacher I am.
Mhm.
That to me
Mhm.
I want to be judged on how good of a parent I am. And that's
Sure.
his parenting there, because he doesn't have kids in the movie. So those are his
Mhm.
kids, and I want to be judged on how I taught you. So to have a moment like that in this film, I thought was really, really special, in a movie that's got bloody boobies as well. But there
True.
are some gnarly kills in this movie.
Yeah.
Some are just really over the top and awesome. But which kill would you say it was that stuck with you the most from this movie?
I mean, I liked the like when they were starting to turn the kids into demons, like in the audience, and everybody started blowing up. And then, like
Yeah.
I said, I love those kind of effects. And as stupid as they may seem to a lot of people, because they are pretty wonky looking, but when you see the people in the audience and they have that still shot of the person like with this like weird face, like, and it's like you can
Yes.
tell it's an effect, yeah. Then it explodes or whatever. Like I love that kind of effect, as cheesy as it is, and even like that at the end when that girl turns into like that demon and it's like really stupid looking and she's like attacking the guy, but at the same time it's like you think about it, you could say, hey, that looks so ridiculous, that looks dumb, but like imagine if that thing's coming at you like for real.
Thank
Like that's
you.
that's a scary looking thing. I don't care how cheesy it looks. I'm thinking to myself, if that thing was in front of me, that's a freaky thing. And I think that's what makes the 80s so special, is the practical effects, as stupid and silly as they may look. Like you got to look at that from a lens of like, what if that thing was real? That's
Yeah.
more scary to me than if I see like some kind of like CGI computerized, it
Yeah.
almost looks like a cartoon ghost or something coming out. Like that doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't seem realistic, right? So, that those were things. And this was kind of a weird scene, but it was interesting, is when the guy was playing the record and that damn thing came out of the speaker and like pulled him in. Like as
Yes.
ridiculous as that was, at the same time it makes me think to myself, like, again, only 80s movies would do something
Yeah.
so silly like
It all
that.
like bubbled up, and it took him forever to like suck him into
Yeah, into the
the.
speaker.
Yeah.
And what I love
Yeah.
about that is that guy is such like a big badass Italian guy. Like,
Yeah.
you just go out and help your mom with the dishes, and then like
Yeah. I guess he was on Sopranos, but I've never watched the show, so I don't
he
really
totally was
know.
on Sopranos.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
And to
thought it was
see
kind
him
of
in
funny.
this role, like, turn that damn music off, and then it keeps
Mhm.
turning back on. We wanted to talk
Yeah.
about that scene because like it looks kind of almost black licorice like when
Yeah.
the record starts
Well,
to
it
go
like
wonky.
Right.
bubbles up. Yeah.
And then when
Mhm.
he gets taken into the speaker, you're just like, that was one of the coolest damn things I've ever seen ever. I
Right.
loved that moment too. So I'm glad that that was a good one that you liked.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
are there any quotes or like one-liners that stuck with you?
Oh man. Let's think. I don't know if one-liners or anything on the shirt says anything. No, but I mean, again, I think like the music is
Music,
just
yeah.
the thing that really like me against the world. Like I like all the choruses on those songs are just, they're not forgettable, and I feel like they're so damn catchy. Then of course I had to try to find the soundtrack back in the day because I was like, there has to be one. Like I need to listen to these songs, and they are on YouTube, and you can check them out there if anybody would rather just listen to the music than watch the movie. But yeah,
Yes.
like those are the big things that really caught me was just that how good the music was. That as soon as I saw the movie, I wanted to find a way to listen to these songs, right? So
Hmm.
that's I think my big selling point on the movie is that the music was so good.
Yeah.
It is it, and I will say, guys, I think you should watch this movie. Um, Ashley and I had a lot of fun watching this
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, it's just mindless. It's no brainer. Like you don't have to think
Mhm.
about it. It's just fun.
You have a lot of fun with this movie,
Yeah.
and I do want to say, Sleepwalkers from the Stephen King film. Do you
Mhm.
remember that movie?
Of course, yeah, yeah.
That's what that chick at the end reminds me of. Like when she gets the long neck and that fit, like that almost
Oh,
cat
yeah,
like
yeah.
head.
The
Mhm.
cat.
That's what she
Yeah.
reminds me of. And like that's the first thing I thought when I saw it. I was like, that's you're right. Like something like that coming at me, way scarier than a La Llorona. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Sure.
So
100
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. So we talked about how much this movie means to you, Garrett, and obviously you're a big fan of this film. Love the shirt, by the way. I had to rock my Troma shirt just to be
I
cool here
love
too. But
it.
what would you say? Obviously, we know there's no such thing as a perfect film, but what would you say
Mhm.
your biggest criticism of Black Roses would be?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. Maybe like I thought the kids were good. The main kid, I read that he was like 28 playing like that high school kid. So he was a little. I wasn't sure if I was sold on him as like the main lead. But I think like the band was good, and like you said, the teacher was excellent. I don't know. I think the criticism I think I would probably give it is the fact that I don't know why it's just buried. Like I don't know why this movie isn't more out there. And I like I said, I guess it has to do with the elements being somewhat destroyed, I assume. But I thought for sure it would get a little more life of its own because it was something that Joe Bob brought on his show on Shudder. And I never owned Shudder, but I heard that Joe Bob's special was Black Roses and Frankenhooker, and I love both of those movies.
Yeah,
And so like that got me to buy Shudder because I was like, what? They're gonna do a double feature of those two? Those aren't two movies that are that are put on a high pedestal. So, but for me, they're two movies that I grew up with and love because again, they fall in that same vein of just like 80s. Well, Frankenhooker I think was like 90, but I mean just that same kind of like vein of just like super schlocky, like junk that like it only worked at that time. And
Mhm.
being a kid and seeing this as a teenager or whatever, it's like you fell in love with it because I had never seen movies like that before. I was watching like the normal movies that a kid would watch and your teenagers would watch in the 90s, like, the big blockbusters and stuff. And then when you start diving into more of these like movies that are on the horror VHS shelf at the movie store, it's like you start to realize there's a whole nother world out there. And they're really
Yeah.
some of the movies that got me really hooked on the genre because they were just so wacky and out of the
yeah.
norm that what I was used to.
For
See,
sure.
So,
and you just brought up something too. The fact that like this and Frankenhooker would totally be an amazing double feature.
Yeah.
Like
mhm,
that is a
mhm.
damn good double feature, man. Like that, I would love to, do a double feature of these movies
Hmm.
together.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah, I
fun.
mean, I think that should still be on Shudder because it was one of the Joe Bob shows. So I
Mhm.
think if you go on Shudder and they have like I think they showed all the Joe Bob specials. It's one of them. I just don't know
Hmm.
which one it was, but those are he did a double feature on those two, probably like 2 years ago, maybe.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, for sure. So this isn't a franchise. Normally we would ask you if it's the favorite in your franchise. Would you say it's your
Mhm.
favorite 80s movie?
I would say for me personally, and I know not a lot of people can agree with me, it's my favorite 80s horror heavy metal movie. And
Mhm.
Okay.
the guy who made this movie, I think his name was John Fasano. He actually did another movie very similar to this, which a lot of people do say that these two are like connected. They're really not, but I mean, they're very close in tone, and that's a movie called Rock and Roll Nightmare. And he made that movie like right around the same time he made this one, and it's kind of almost in the same idea of like heavy metal and horror. It's a little bit different. I like this one better. I think this one is a little bit better in my opinion, but it's another one I would definitely maybe check out. And then obviously you have things like Hard Rock Zombies, and you've got things like Trick or Treat, which is the one everybody talks about, which is a great
Yeah.
movie. I love that movie. But I also
Mhm.
think at the same time, like, you know, it's more for some reason talked about than something like this. And maybe it has to do with, you know, Sammy Kerr being a little bit more on like the Alice Cooper-ish side of
Mhm.
cool, where these guys are more, like you said, of like the Brett Michaels of
Yeah.
cool, right? So maybe a lot of people are on that other side where it's like, no, that guy, you know, Damien's like this is wimpy guy, you know, and he's this pretty boy guy. We
The
don't like
pretty
him. We like Sammy
boy.
Kerr, right? So it
Until
could very
that
well
wig
fall in the same
comes
thing.
off,
I
baby.
know that wig comes off.
The wig comes off and Damien turns into Damien. So
Sure.
um
So I
we
maybe
do
that
want to
could
give a rank. Oh, go ahead, Garrett.
no, no, no. I think that that's probably, like I said, is why maybe more people gravitate towards Trick or Treat, or maybe they just haven't seen this one. But you look at companies like Fright Rags and stuff, and these companies do Trick or Treat merch. You never
Yeah.
see any kind of merch for this movie, you know?
Right.
Right. And it's unfortunate because I do think this is a
Mhm.
gem. Like I said, it's really, really hard for Ash and I to both agree we had a great time watching a
Mhm.
horror movie. So for us to sit down and together collectively really enjoy watching this movie, that was a really fun experience. So we always, at the end, we want to rank these movies out of 10 skulls. You know, 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. As always, we're going to let our guests go first. So 0, like I said, being the worst, 10 being the best. How many skulls would you give Black Roses?
It's funny because, and I'm actually very impressed that both of you enjoyed it because I don't like there's a lot of stuff that I love that people are like, really, like you like that. It's not they're not widely loved movies, but there's a lot of movies that I'm like, I don't really care about that movie. And other people are like, oh my God, it's a great movie. So my taste is very different than I think a lot of people's. So
Mhm.
it's hard for me to really sit there and be like, oh my God, it's not a masterpiece by any means. So I'm actually kind of happy that both of you sat there and actually were like, you know what, it was a fun movie from the
Yes.
80s that we never saw
Right.
before. And it's hard to get that reaction because you are going into a weird time where it's like, yes, the effects are cheesy to some, right? Like, yes,
Yeah.
if you don't like hair metal, it might not be your thing. Like, I get it, but it's just one of those things for me that it is one that I really like because it's like just everything that I'm looking for in my kind of movie. So as far as what I give this out of 10, I mean, it's hard for me to give this a 10. It's even hard for me to give this an 8 because I know my taste is not like going to be like everybody else's. But I'll go out there and say, you know what, I'll give this like a 7.58 in just fun value, fun factor. Like I could watch this at any time
Yeah.
and just have fun with it. Like I wouldn't be bored of it. You know, I don't think this is a masterpiece by any means. It's no, you know, Fright Night or whatever, but I think I would still put it up there for the fun factor of like probably like a 7.5.
Okay.
Well, and I think the older I get, I really want to be entertained by a movie.
Yeah.
I don't go into it
Mhm.
looking for reasons to be pissy. I go into it looking for reasons to have fun.
Hmm.
And you know, if I'm going to spend an hour and a half watching a movie, I'm going to try to find every positive I possibly can. And this movie was very easy. We're also in the minority that love Halloween Resurrection. We have a blast
Hmm.
every
Yeah.
time we watch that movie. It's a fun movie. Is it a great slasher? No, it's not.
No.
But it's a fun movie
It's
that
like
makes
one
me
of my
laugh and
comfort
entertains me.
movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he's going with a 7.5. What are you going with?
I'll go with a 7. You know, like we talked about, it was super fun. It's nostalgic because this is something that my dad would have showed me when I was a
For
kid.
sure.
Like,
That's
and
awesome.
This movie has Randy Westgate written all over it.
yeah, and just like the hair and everything. Like my mom had that hair, like in
Yeah.
all of
Love
her
it.
pictures. Like, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.
I'm always the overly critical one, and I'm still going to go with a 6. I'm still going a little bit above the audience score. Just like you said, if you tried to redo something like this today, it would fall flat on its face.
Yeah.
I firmly believe
Mhm.
that something like this would not work today. This is the perfect time capsule in watching, and even the stuff that you watch this movie that you're like, holy shit, there's no way someone should talk to their stepdaughter like that.
Yeah.
Or, you
Mhm.
know, I don't see a pirate ship out in my driveway. You know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. You're like, wow, like this
Mhm.
really reminds me of the 80s. Like this is a
Because yeah,
totally the
because he had the
dialogue is
earring in. That's right.
yes,
Yeah.
I forgot
yes,
about
you know,
that.
very, very 80s dialogue.
Oh
So
my God.
again, I could throw this movie on, and I hope that you guys that are watching, I hope you go and you give this movie a chance.
Mhm.
If you want a high quality version of it, it is streaming on Shudder. That's where we watched it.
Mhm.
But we did find the VHS copy on YouTube, and I thought it was so rad, no pun intended, that it still had the trailers before the movie, even on the YouTube version. I thought that was so cool.
Mhm.
Because I used to love watch coming soon to theaters.
Really? I
Coming
hated
soon
that.
to home
Like
video. I loved it.
I hated that.
Yeah.
It took forever to get to your
That was
movie.
my YouTube as a kid.
Yeah.
I never fast
Sure.
forwarded through the trailers at the beginning.
But I mean, if you've already seen the movie like 100 times, you're like,
Then you know, yeah,
okay.
you know
Like,
the trailers.
Right.
So, Garrett, this is your final defense. You say you have like 30 seconds to tell someone why they should watch this or give it another chance. What would you say to them?
Pretty much what we talked about, I would say, listen, if you're a big fan of the 80s and horror movies, if you like heavy metal music, I think that this is definitely one to check out because it is one that I find is just nobody's seen it. I don't know why. I don't know why this doesn't get enough love. If you think about back in the VHS days, this actually had a really cool VHS. It had
Mhm.
it almost had like a 3D effect to it. So it was like everything the picture was like all embossed and stuff. So it was a really nice looking VHS tape back in the day. But for some reason this just kind of got lost in the shuffle, compared to the other heavy metal horror movies like Trick or Treat. But if you like things like I would say Frankenhooker, The Stuff, The Gate, I would say definitely
Yeah.
check this one out. I think it kind of fits right in that same realm as a lot of those movies. And the effects are really good. As cheesy as they are, they just scream 80s, and it's almost like an MTV video, made into a movie. And I think
Yes.
it's
Yes.
definitely one that you guys should at least check out and just leave it in the comments down below what you thought of it. If you loved it, you hated it, if you were like, hey, thank you so much for introducing me to something I've never seen before, because when I picked this, it was more along the lines is that um, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do in defense of a movie that everybody knew because, it's cool to find these gems of movies that you're like, how did this pass me by? And I'm so
Mhm.
glad someone opened my eyes to something that I would have never found. And, I
Mhm.
love that when that happens to me. And I hope that this would do that for some people that might be watching this.
Yeah.
And that's what we were going to say. If you guys haven't seen it, please go check it out. Come back, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the film.
Mhm.
Does Garrett make you want to watch this movie more? After you watch the movie, how quickly did you download the soundtrack onto your Spotify? Because I'll be doing that tonight.
Mhm.
So we do want to remind you guys before we go, as always, we have all of Garrett's social media links and YouTube link down in the description. So please make sure you're clicking those links, subscribing on YouTube, following on social media. And if you haven't seen this movie and unfortunately you don't have Shudder, watch that grainy VHS version down here in the description.
It's on Tubi and it's on Peacock as well.
Tubi and Peacock. So I'll put the
Wow.
Tubi link
Mhm.
and the YouTube link down here. So you have free ways to watch it. So if you want to watch it on Tubi so you can get a higher quality, or if you want to sit with the grainy YouTube version like I was watching at work today, make sure you're checking those out. Garrett, we really appreciate you coming on, man, but please
Mhm.
don't go anywhere. We got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps our channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror,
Stay who you are.
and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.